All right, pulling guard, wrestling up. Right, something very simple that works at the highest level is when I pull guard, my opponent meets me on his knees. Right, if guys are leaning forward, he has his head over his knees. I'll use a multitude of attacks to off balance him and get on top. Also similar, my opponent's shoulders are directly over his hip line. Right, this happens when an opponent's like looking for a rest or they're just relaxing. Right, this is a great opportunity to take a leg towards the chest and push your opponent backwards. Now, why this works so well is because your opponent doesn't have any post behind him, right? He can post left or right in this position, but it's really hard to post directly behind himself. So if your opponent's leaning forward, we're going to use different reactions. But sometimes in matches, you see guys like, they're looking for a break, so they'll be seated, pretty much sitting on their heels, and they'll have their shoulders directly over their hips. Now, I'll take the foot to the chest slowly, and then I'll give a good heavy push. What we want to look to avoid is a retraction and a kick to the chest, right? Like if you watch my match against Wagner Rocha, when he was on bottom, he pretty much just kicked me in the chest. And there was no result. There wasn't no moving. It was just like he was trying to cause me pain, and it didn't help his match at all. So again, if you want a proper like push kick, but not a kick. You know what I mean? So pulling guard down here, you can do it either from an elbow on the mat, or I prefer a hand posted out behind. This is so you can drive up and get on top fairly quickly. So, we're in a position like he's leaning forward, we're engaging, and then I feel him relax. And I also relax so he can feel my energy, right? He can feel me being calm. From here, I'll slowly take a foot to the chest, and then I'll push in pretty explosively to get him going backwards. The second he starts going backwards, I'll also start heisting up and getting on top of my opponent. If you heist as you extend your leg and he falls backwards, you will win the battle for hip height. Again, I said this multiple times in this instructional, but hip height is very important, right? In a scramble, typically the guy that gets his hips higher wins the battle, and this is a version of a scramble, right? Or one guy's on top, one guy's on bottom. You get your hips on top of there, so you're going to start winning the scramble. So I'm in a position like this, and I'm relaxing. My opponent's relaxing. From here, I take my foot slowly towards the chest. Once I get around the center of the chest, I give an explosive push, boom, pushing him backwards. And reverse, yep. And as he starts going backwards, I also start heisting up. And I use a hand to block my opponent, prevent him from heisting. So immediately I can go into J-point camping or passing. But of every subtle technique that works at the highest level. Again, I even saw Gordon Ryan do this against Yuri Samoas back at maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago in one of their earlier competitions. I believe it was a Kasai grappling event. So again, just a very simple technique that works great, and we see it from the lower levels to the higher levels. A way of wrestling up, getting on top of your opponent with minimal like athleticism needed. It doesn't take a lot of energy. It's just a simple push kick, more depending on the timing. So again, my opponent's shoulders are directly over hips. It's a great opportunity to start to use this push kick. Bring the foot to the chest and start extending. Again, we're looking to avoid a retraction and an explosion, which is just going to probably lead to a disqualification. What we need is to bring the foot up slowly, connect it to the chest, and then boom, we can explode as hard as we can once we are already connected. And as I get that explosion, I see him fall backwards, and immediately I'm wrestling up. And as I start wrestling up, I'm pushing off the mat, tucking my heel to my butt, and I have a hand out wide. The hand out wide is that as he wrestles up, I can prevent him, right? And I can start building height prior to him building height. If I push him backwards and I just wrestle up on my own without getting a hand extended, he can also wrestle up, start taking single legs. He could even probably beat me in engagement as far as like getting connected towards my legs. So that's why it's very important is the second you get extension, boom, he's going backwards. We're using that momentum to also wrestle up and get on top of our opponent. In addition, having that hand extended will prevent him from sitting up and then doing a wrestle up of his own. So again, a very simple technique, but works at the highest levels. I'm in seated guard, my opponent's on his knees, and he's trying to collect himself, trying to take a break. He's relaxing. I lean back slightly. I get my foot connected to his chest, relatively slow, and then all at once, boom, I start exploding into him, and I start heisting up. While I heist up, I keep a hand extended to prevent him from building height, and then I can go right to a camping and or passing position. So, a couple reps of this very simple technique, pulling guard. I notice his shoulders are over hips. I lean back, foot to the chest. Oh, I'm exploding in, and boom, I can start passing right away. Once again, foot to the chest, pushing back, heisting up. Boom. So it's as simple as it looks. Just more about the timing. Your opponent's shoulders are directly over the hips. Great opportunity to start to use a push kick technique. Bring the foot to the chest, avoid the retraction and then an explosion into him, but rather slowly bring the foot to the chest, and then we can push and explode him backwards. The second his weight's going backwards, we use that momentum of our kick to start heisting up with a straight arm, preventing him from heisting up. Once we're on top, we can work camping or passing, but nevertheless, you won the scramble, you won the hip height battle.